I think if I hear you call me Becky one more time, six-pack, I'm gonna pop your tops. All six of them.
Hey, this is Matt once again. We're about to another review. This is another PayPal request from Albin Hayden, who wanted my thoughts on the 1971 film The French Connection. First off, thank you so much for that. If anyone's ever interested in sending requests of pretty much any type, review, re-review, topic, commentary, what have you, or anything else, you do it in the info box down below. There's a link to my PayPal if I learn how to talk. You can request it via my PayPal there. Or you can be part of my Patreon, which is a monthly thing, and certain tiers give you certain things. But either way is fine. If not, no worries. At the end of the day, The French Connection, I liked it. I don't love it, but it's well directed by William Friedkin. You have Gene Hackman and Roy Scheider, two actors I very, very much enjoy. Gene Hackman, I've never seen him give a bad performance. I love him in this film called Uncommon Valor, which I think is a criminally underrated film. Gene Hackman brings it in his movies, even from comedies like The Replacements to superhero movies like Superman the movie. And he does a great job here as Popeye Doyle. Roy Scheider. Granted, watching the film again, Roy Scheider doesn't really have a ton of stuff to do or say when you watch it. I know he was, well, I think he was nominated for a supporting Oscar for this, and I'm like, I like Roy Scheider, but why was he nominated for an Oscar for this? Because Roy Scheider, with what little he does a good job, but especially in the second half, he doesn't really have a lot to do other than following people on foot. I mean, there's not really a lot of deep conversations him and Gene Hackman have with each other. Really not a lot of conversations at all in the second half. Mainly it's just them being on stakeout and watching. And whether Roy Scheider, I think his performance in 2010, the year we made contact, has much more than this. Or Blue Thunder, which I love Blue Thunder. I think he's underrated. Much more Roy Scheider's character than this. Granted, he's the star of those, but still. But Roy Scheider is good. Nice to see him. I liked a little bit at the beginning where Roy Scheider's like, drink this, and Gene Hackman's like, whip it out. Like, giving each other shit. I wish there was more of that throughout the film, though. But it is well directed. It does at times have a documentary feel to it, which made it interesting. Pretty much these are two cops working in narcotics. They realize that a big shipment is going down and there's going to be a Frenchman coming over. The French Connection, which is, I want to say it was heroin being the drug. I know one point it gets all these tools together, puts it all together. 89% pure junk. Gene Hackman, like I said, does a great job. There's a scene in a bar where he's finding all these bills and stuff. He's like, move fast when I call you. And then he gets with this guy who's an informant, but he's got to make it look like to keep up appearances. Where you want it? And the guy goes, oh shit. And so he has to punch the informant, again, to keep appearances. That was an entertaining scene. Pretty much they're joined by these two FBI guys. And a good chunk of the film is them following folks on stakeout, following the Frenchman to a subway train, but he gets fucked over and tricked by the Frenchman. Of course, the standout scene, which would usually be the finale in some of these movies, but the car chase scene where he's driving a car while a bad guy's in an elevated train. It's a great scene. It's a great action sequence because it showcases Gene Hackman's, the character's obsession, how he's almost hitting people, almost hits this lady with a baby carriage and gets out of the way. Not that he wants to kill her on purpose, of course, but just his obsession and the way it was filmed and how certain low angles or the camera's sort of on the bumper of the car and the way it's edited. It's a very well done car chase. The POV of the car. And then the fact that he shoots the assassin in the back because, hey, he's the hero. They shouldn't do that. Shoot people in the back. But this, with the documentary feel and all that, I guess it was, I hate to use the term realistic, but I think maybe at the time when this film came out in 1971, it made a bit different compared to other police cop movies. Was distinctions like that, like the way it was filmed, the way certain ways, like the camera, it did look like a documentary crew was there, or again, there's more like an anti-hero than a hero, like truthfully. Shooting the bad guy in the back, the car chase almost hitting certain people. Even the way it ends, and he does something and Popeye Doyle barely cares because of his obsession. Now I say Gene Hackman is good, but I want to say something controversial, which is not the first or last time I do this. I actually like the sequel better than this. And I actually think Gene Hackman did an even better job in the sequel. He did a good job in here, but if you were to tell me which film he deserved the Oscar for, I would say French Connection 2. Don't get me wrong, he did a good job in the French Connection, but the French Connection 2, he is really the star of that film. It just, in that movie, he has more conversations, he has more speeches to give, and you have the sequence where they drug him and he has to overcome that drug addiction cold turkey, which I thought was a very riveting scene in the sequel. The French Connection 2, I think, is a pretty damn underrated sequel that no one talks about, and they're like, oh, it's not as good as the first film. I'm like, I actually think it's a much better movie than the first film. It definitely has a more satisfying ending. Like this one, spoiler alert, long stakeout. They find the drugs in this car. They give the car back, I guess, to set them up. Because the bad guys all get together, including Tony Bianco, who's been in some films, including the Larry Cohen film God Told Me To. The cops get in there. Roy Scheider gets Tony Bianco's character. Him and Gene Hackman looking for the Frenchman. Roy Scheider accidentally shoots one of the agents, and Gene Hackman doesn't give a shit, again, because of his obsession. And then it just, he goes to a room, you hear a gunshot, and then, oh, the Frenchman got away, the two cops have been reassigned. Most of the people who they kind of pretty much got a slap on the wrist. And that's the thing with a lot of 70s movies, it's not all sunshine and rainbows because it was comparing it to the time at hand. The Vietnam War and Watergate and race riots, and so movies reflected the nature of the culture at the time. So I can understand that. And I would say the actors, the way it was filmed, the way it was shot, the standout car chase sequence, which I think still holds up to this day, it makes it a good movie and worth a look. The ending doesn't bother me. Well, I do wish the sequel at least mentioned the fact that he accidentally shot an agent for example, when he's overcoming his drug addiction because of what they did, they try to reference that. He tried to visualize that, felt guilty for that. I get it. The character they're portraying, but I still would have preferred at least some semblance of that. At least a little bit. That's just me, though. But the fact it leaves on a cliffhanger, I could just go into the sequel and there is an ending. I think even the poster says, you saw the first connection. Now this is the ending. I forget the actual tagline of the sequel, but watching this again, I forgot how a lot of it is these lawn stakeouts. And Roy Scheider isn't in the movie as much as one thinks. Because when people talk about Roy Scheider, they always reference the French Connection. And again, he's good, but watch it again, and after the first 20 minutes, really pay attention to how little Roy Scheider's in the picture. I mean, physically he's there, but I mean, what he actually does in terms of like conversations, dialogue, stuff of that. And even Gene Hackman, in the second half of the film, there's really not a lot of dialogue or anything of the sort other than the car chase, the lawn stakeouts, a little bit of action at the end. Again, just interesting to watch it again. So it's not a film that I love for those various reasons, but and I do like the sequel more than this. With that said, believe me, if I thought the film sucked, I would say it. For those who know my channel, you know that. It's well directed, the actors do their jobs well, Gene Hackman is still very solid. It has a great, that 70s feel and vibe to it. How the city and structure looked at the time, where, I don't want to say cynical, but just that environment of the cityscape that would never be replicated, because despite how harsh it can be nowadays, it was a lot harsher back then around this time. Let's put it that way. And films like this does capture that. And overall, still a good movie. I hesitate because I'm like, I don't love the film, but it's not a bad film in the slightest, not at all. But hey, that's just my opinion. Either way, thanks for watching, take care, and we will see you in the next video. Later.